This Shabbos we're reading a lot of strong things, but one of the things I just want to know a little bit, that, first of all, Korach was a very holy man, and he said, why should Aaron be the high priest? Why not I, He was very holy. Anyway, we started getting involved. So then, everybody knows the story, that Korach and all the people who were with him, Mamish, suddenly disappeared, The earth opened and they disappeared. We'll learn maybe later on why this was, why. Just a lot of people do wrong, so they die and they get sick or something, just completely disappeared. But then after that, people were still thinking, because it was like a whole family affair, Moshe is the top man, the king, and Aaron is the high priest, and the Leviim, everything like. What's so strong about the whole thing? The other tribes, we are holy also. What's so special about them? So God says, again, I'm just giving you a nutshell right now. I just want to tell you a little bit about the portion of the week. Everybody should give a little dry stick, and put it in the Holy of Holies. And it says, the one who I've chosen, his stick will. Give me a chumash, I'm sorry to say. Okay, God says to Moshe, tell the children of Israel, everybody should take a little stick, and they should write the name of. And everybody should write his name on the stick, and the name of Aaron should be written on the stick of Levi, because Leviim and the priests are the same. And it says, and it shall come to pass that the man whom I shall choose, his rod shall bud, and I will make to cease from me the murmurings of the children of Israel. Okay, so that means the person whose mom is real, a dry stick will begin to blossom. So the next morning they came, and the stick of Aaron had little buds, had little nuts on it, shkedim. Because shkedim, I don't know what the name of those nuts is. What's shkedim?
That's almonds.
Almonds. They're the fastest in the whole world to grow. Yeah. Okay, so now listen, this is very, very strong, because a lot of people, I spoke to a lot of kids, and I realized a lot of kids are hung up on that. Oh, what? I'll tell you in a second, Not you, God forbid. Generally. No, I don't mean kids here, I mean kids in the world. If someone were to ask you, am I a Jew because of all the miracles I saw? Moshe went from a lot of miracles. And let me ask something else. Why didn't God speak to us right in Egypt? Perform so many miracles, the 10 plagues and the whole thing. Let's knock it off in one show. Let's knock off the whole thing. If someone were to ask you, what's happening on Mount Sinai, I'd say, it was just the greatest miracle in the world. I could hear God's voice. What a miracle. How does it sound to you? Something wrong, right? Mount Sinai was a miracle? What would you say, kids? Mount Sinai was a miracle?
It's a wondrous occurrence. But, why shouldn't God speak to us?
So why shouldn't He split the Red Sea?
Yeah.
Also right. Listen to this. Imagine if someone would come and show you miracles. Someone will walk now and suddenly make all the house disappear. Right? He'll be top man, right? Then you say, in the name of God, I don't want you to keep Shabbos, I want you to keep Sunday. So I would say, listen, he's got to be a messenger of God because he performed so many miracles. What do you say, kids? What? But imagine if it would have never happened before. What would you say? I tell you something else, Someone will come and perform all the 10 plagues, and someone will come down here and get me a little microphone and God's voice will booming out, Say, oh Lord. Wait, I gotta clear my throat. Let's try again, I'm the Lord. Yeah, testing. How would it sound to you? Imagine someone come now, he has a tape recorder and he says that my great-grandfather was on Mount Sinai and he taped the whole show. That would be a way out record, you know? Hear God on Channel 2. Ay vey. What?
If somebody come up and do the 10th place, I mean,
So what would you-
against somebody like that, you know?
Or what would you tell him?
First of all, to do something on that power level. You know,
So, what would happen?
what can you say? What can you say to somebody who's
I'll tell you what, if someone would come and turn over heaven and earth,
Yeah.
you know, and show me all the miracles, I'll still spit in his face, because Shabbos is Shabbos and it's not Sunday.
Oh, if he says it's Sunday. Oh.
No, not God forbid personally against him. He say, after I show you all these miracles, I want you to know I have a message from God that Shabbos is on Sunday. Or I have a message from God that from now on you shouldn't put on tefillin on your left hand but on your right hand.
What would be the reason that you would? Because the Torah says that if anyone who comes and says contrary to
No,
the
no, I'll
Torah,
tell you
or
something
because
very,
of
very...
their belief.
No, I'll tell you. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm getting to. The Torah's MS is a very strong question. If Aaron would be chosen, and you need a miracle to show that he is chosen, what kind of chosenness is that? It's a very low kind of chosenness. If I, as a Jew, need a miracle to tell the world that I'm chosen, I'll show you miracles. That's tricks, right? On the highest level, even God's miracles are tricks, right? It goes much deeper than all that, you know. If someone were to tell you, I can prove to you that I'm chosen and I'll show you a few miracles, what would you think of that person? I'd say, what a low Jew, right? He says something very, very deep. It's unbelievably deep. What, you know, he says, if a person, let's say, perform a miracle, then I walk out and I'm fighting with people over it, you know? Let's say someone performs a miracle, then I walk out to the world and say, listen, I saw this miracle, and you don't know the miracle, now I gotta fight with you, I'm a God person, you're not, you know, the whole big thing. Then it's already a sign it was not real. The great thing of a mamish, a true holy miracle is that it's so strong, can't be any fighting it. The holiness is when Aaron's little stick began growing, you know. The whole thing is that mamish, there was so much peace after that, you know. It was mamish peace. The mamish knew this is Aaron. That's it. You know? He says because what is the deepest depth of holiness? The deepest depth of holiness is to bring peace into the world. He says, what does it mean? Listen to this. He says, what does it mean? God has chosen a holy soul. God has chosen a holy soul. That means God has chosen this soul who should be like bringing down this holiness of God, to bring peace between God and the world. Because everything dead has no peace, only living has peace. It's really true. Two dead people fight, you know. One says, I'm more dead, the other says, you are more dead. You know? Living people don't fight, you know, if they're mamish alive. This is very strong to remember, kids, you know, really. Sometimes a person is a little bit tempted, you know. You know, if the whole world will come and tell me that there are people who perform miracles, they are holy, they say good things, it doesn't change 1 inch, 1/1000th of an inch from my being a Jew and because this comes from a much deeper place. Maybe this person is very holy, he reached the level he can perform miracles. Maybe he reached the level he can say holy words. But my Jewishness, my holiness doesn't come from that level of miracle. It comes from what it really is. Right? Really is. Much deeper than all that. Let's put it this way, you know, if I love somebody because they're beautiful, it's very beautiful, but it's not real yet, right? Okay, maybe I Because I only know that they're in the world because they're beautiful, otherwise I wouldn't have noticed them, let's say. But after I noticed it, right? It's not that, it's much deeper than all that. Anybody want to say something strong, Holy Chief Rabbi?
What do you think the opening of the earth was a miracle?
Yeah, it wasn't a miracle. It was they couldn't be here anymore. It was also not, they couldn't live anymore here. The craziest thing in the world is, the tribe of Levi never did wrong all the time. In Egypt, they weren't even slaves. He just said that Pharaoh told everybody. The first day he says, "I want everybody to work, and I'm working with them." Slowly tricked the Jews to work. Mate Levi right away was so holy they said, "It doesn't smell right. We're not going to work for Pharaoh." So they were never slaves. When it came to the golden calf, if you remember, the Levim didn't participate. And one time here, the most horrible thing, when Korach was so bad it completely disappeared, was just from the tribe of Levi. So he says something unbelievable. Between good and evil, it's not so hard to differentiate. Right? I see this one is bad, this one is good. Between holy and holier, that's the deepest thing in the world. Because even among the holy people, to know this is it and this is not it yet, nobody else could stand up this kind of, this birra, how do you say birra? This birra achabira, to sip it out, just to sift it out. Could only be a holy person, right? You cannot say, he is an evil, the world always talks about evil and good. Korach is not evil and good. Korach talks about holy and holier. Now listen to this very deep. What is holy and what's holier? Holy and holier is not measured by. I put on one more pair of tefillin, my tzitzis are longer than yours, so my talus is hanging down lower. Listen to this unbelievable thing. This is also strong Torah. You know what it is? Please me very deep. Is there any greater joy than to be a servant of God? Can you imagine what the Levim felt when they were standing there in Beis HaMikdash and they were singing? Unbelievable joy, just the greatest bliss in the world. Unheard. Can you imagine what the high priest felt? He walked into the Holy of Holies. He mamish know there was only one God. Greatest feeling in the world. So it is possible to serve God because it's really the most beautiful thing in the world. And it's possible to say, God, I want to serve you more because I want to taste the sweetness more. It's very holy. But this isn't where it's at. A person has to serve God because if God wants me to taste the sweetness, it's good, okay with me. If not, it's also good. See, the whole difference between Korach and Aaron was that Korach really, mamash, he was a little Levi and he felt it so sweet. He thought, if I would be a priest, I'd feel the sweetness even more. I want to taste it. It's so holy, I want it. That means you're serving God because it feels good. That's so low. That means you are taking God or using it. Listen, you want to take a discotheque and use it for your pleasure, that's okay with me. But to take God and use it for your own, that's the lowest thing in the world. On one hand, it's very holy, right? Because he really wants to taste God. On the other hand, it's absolutely the lowest in the world, right? Like someone says, put another little sugar in my coffee. I say to God, listen, give me a little bit more of you so I'll taste it sweeter, right? But they have to be very holy. So he says that this portion of the week, which is mamish tab, could only be by the tribe of Levi, who are really completely holy. But within the tribe of Levi, there had to be the sifting out. The world should know that this is Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron only serve God because they want to serve God. And Korach is serving God because he wants to taste the sweetness.
But why didn't they attract anyone else besides Levi?
It had to be the Levim. Who else could be on that holiness level? Because the Levim, mamish, tasted what it is to serve God. The others did it, but not on that level.
Near any of that.
No, they never tasted it. They were not living on that level of bliss like Korach was mamish completely holy. Can you imagine Korach was a person who never did one thing wrong in his life? Obviously, if he had the slightest sin, and he was real, you have to realize one thing: Korach was not stupid. You know what Korach wanted? He wanted so much to serve God in the most unbelievable way. He really wanted to serve God. But he wanted to serve God because it's so good. Just so good. And you have to realize also one thing: Korach was on the level that he never did one thing wrong in his whole life. Because otherwise, Korach would be honest enough to say, I cannot be the high priest because I did wrong. That much he knew, I want you to know one thing, that the Yismach Moshe says that in one of the times I was here in this world, I was one of the people who went out with Moshe from Egypt. He says, and I was there when the fight was going on between Korach and Moshe. He says, I didn't mingle in because I didn't know which one is which. He says, I tell you the truth, Korach was so holy that I mamish didn't know if he's not holier than I. I didn't know. So I stayed neutral.
Shlomo, what
Yeah?
about his basic question?
After he wanted so much, and God showed him that deep down it wasn't holy, And it was holy, but it was not on that level. I don't know. I want to learn with you just for a few seconds. Listen, I don't know the answer yet. If I would know it, I would tell you. I just don't know. I want to learn a few things here. He says something very strong. A person has to be a Ne'eman. Ne'eman means getrai. How would you say getrai? Mamshi writes here getrai. The Kotzker Rebbe says that Ne'eman means getrai. That means he doesn't do it because he wants it for himself. He wants to do it because God said so. You know what means a faithful servant? Who doesn't do it because he thinks it's good or he feels it's sweet? A faithful servant. Moshe Rabbeinu says, B'chol beisi ne'emanu, Moshe Rabbeinu is faithful. Faithful means I'm doing it because God said so. And then there's such a thing as Tamimim, being whole. Be completely with it. Whole is even deeper than that, or maybe less deep. Whole means that I'm so completely given, whatever God will say, I will do. Complete.
Because you know it's right.
Tomim. Tomim means I won't think of what I think doesn't matter. I'll accept it. I'm so completely given to God. Whatever God says, it'll be okay with me. You know what it is? This is the deepest depth there is. If you have this level of faithfulness and completeness, okay, everybody wants to be the holy of holiest, but maybe God doesn't want you to be the holy of holiest. Maybe God needs you to be less holy and serve Him on that level. What do I know, right? Everybody likes to be like our father Abraham, but maybe God doesn't need another Abraham like the Pshishra says. God had already Abraham. Now he needs some Chavunim, right? You see, it's a very delicate thing. On one hand, I have to want to be the holiest, the greatest. On the other hand, I have to say to God, listen, if you don't want me to be so holy, it's also okay with me. That's the highest level there is. That's the most real thing there is. See, Korach wanted to serve God, but Yomamish wanted to be the holiest. Aaron was ready to serve God even if I'm the lowest, right? I don't care. Therefore he was stuck the holiest, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was chosen because Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to go up to Mount Sinai and said, listen, you know what Moshe Rabbeinu felt at Mount Sinai? Gewalt, right? For Moshe Rabbeinu, if God was somebody else, would have been just as happy. Absolutely just as happy. Because the most important thing is that Israel should know what God has to say. Right? But because he was the only one who was just so much he wanted just that God should tell them what it is. And it didn't matter to him who it is, therefore he was the only one who was chosen. Because the other ones, it really mattered to them if it's he or somebody else. So the moment it matters to you if it's you or somebody else, you cannot go up to Mount Sinai, right? You cannot be a high priest unless it doesn't matter to you who it is. So then it can be you.
It's not a selfish level.
It's deeper than, it's not just selfish. You mamish want to serve God, but you really want to serve God. I want to serve God. I, Shlomo, want to serve God. I, Yitzchak, want to be holy, right? Which is very high level, halavai. I wish everybody would be on that level. Korach was takamamish holy, right? But on this Bamidbar, like Ishbitzer says, this portion of the week is just showing us that even that is not good enough. To be mamish a yidale is even deeper than that. I will say I want to be a Jew because I realize this is a true religion, and this is the truth, and I want to be holy, I want to be close to God. It's very holy, but this isn't where it's at yet. Someone says, I want to be a Jew because, I don't know why, just because of the truth, right? Because I just got to be it, I don't know. Not because I'll be holy, I'll be closer. You see, the first thing is, and listen, the first thing you have to know, the moment, why is it that we Yiddelach have more trouble than the world, right, with God? Because, obviously, right? Listen to me, when you are in kindergarten, are you failing the grades? So all the kids in kindergarten go through, right? When do you begin failing? When the higher it gets, the more you fail. And the more kids drop out, right? Because it's getting higher, right? When it comes to writing your PhD, you better write something good, right? In high school, you can still get away with a lousy thing, right? Go to college, you better be there. Imagine you want to be a professor somewhere, You write a book, you want people to read it, you better have something to say, right? The higher it gets, the more real it has to be, right? So we're operating on the highest, right? Got to be real. And if it's not real, it's bad. Then he says something very, very deep. Do you think serving God is just knocking off a little service of God, and that's what it is, The service of God is because I'm God's messenger. I'm putting on film because God told me to put on film. Otherwise I'd be crazy. I'm taking a little piece of leather with something inside and it's crazy, right? If I'm not doing it because God told me to, I think I like it, Like this Reform rabbi said to my father, this film I really like. It's a very, very beautiful ceremony. This is not what it is, He doesn't get the message, right? A person has to know I'm only doing it because God told me. If I want to do more than God told me, and I think, it'll be sweeter on me, it's very holy, but this isn't where it's at. And yet, on the other hand, I have to want it more, Because if a person says, no, it's enough for me to do what God told me to do, and I don't want more, that's also bad. So he says, what is a priest? The priest is the utmost of a servant of God. The utmost of a servant of God is that he's mamish only doing it only for the sake of God. And Korach was not able to be a priest. You see, he was holy enough to be a Levi, obviously, right? As long as he was a Levi, nothing happened to him. The only thing, the moment he wanted to become a Kohen, he had trouble. You were good enough, a Levi is good enough. A Levi is like a mamish, someone who wants to serve God with all the holiness, and wants more and one more. That's very holy. But a Kohen, something else. Kohen is only Aaron. Only Aaron is sure, because Aaron really, really did not think of himself for 1 second. It didn't matter to him if it's here or somebody else. He just wanted that there should be a high priest who brings Yiddelach close to God. It didn't matter to him who it was. On the contrary, he wanted that's somebody else. But you see, the moment Korach pushes himself up to that level, then it's not enough just to roll down. Obviously, he completely disappears. So you have to realize something very deep. Remember, I told you the story about it depends whom you start with, right? Listen, I start a fight here with Holy Dovitul. Okay, imagine I'll have the chutzpah to start a fight with the Rebbe. Might knock me out from this world, the coming world, right? Remember the story about which he said that the holy. And if you kids want to retell it, and if you kids remember, when the Reb Sholom's son, Reb Avram, when Reb Sholom died, of Sukkot and Sukkot's night, Reb Avram was very sick in the Sukkah like a Rebbe, and he was 14 years old. And this Yidel was like a chutzpah, First of all, he's only 14 years old, And a Rebbe never dared becoming a Rebbe without asking permission from all the other Rebbes. And he's becoming a Rebbe on his own. He thought a chutzpah. Remember? No?
With the drum.
Yeah.
It says there was a king who had something wrong with his pictures.
No. Okay. I'm sorry.
I
No.
don't remember. I'm getting
Yeah, no.
it.
It's not bad because I told the story myself 15 times. Otherwise, I wouldn't know it either.
I've heard it. Yeah, tell it on TV.
Yeah. The story is, so this Chassid was sitting there and the vibrations were so bad, Rabbi Rom could feel it the whole time. So after Sukkot's second day when he left home, Rom says, I want to tell you a story. The king built a palace and he thought it was the most perfect palace in the world. So he says, if there's anybody in the world that can come and find something wrong with it, I give him 100,000 pieces of gold. So this little drunkard didn't have much to do, one day he staggered in there to the palace, looks around. Craziest thing, he saw there's a painting of a drunken man holding a cup. He tells the guards, there's something wrong here because when you're drunk, you don't hold the cup straight, you hold the cup like this. Anyway, they called the king, and the king says, well, it's a gewalt, like a little top drunkard, He gives him 100,000 pieces of gold, But then the drunkard thinks, I might stick around, maybe I'll find some more, This is a good business, The next day, the king is sitting there, with his crown, and all the people are there. Suddenly, he raised his hand. He found something wrong with the crown. So the king says, you better knock him off. The goddamn to say such a thing. So he says to the king, I can't understand you. Yesterday I told you something wrong with the painting. You gave me 100,000 rubles. Now I tell you something wrong with your crown, and you beat me. He says, you're a drunkard. You understand something of drunkenness. But what do you understand about my crown? The moment you start, questioning the crown, it's very, very, very delicate territory. You want to be a Levi, a servant of God, you're holy, you want to serve God more, that's very holy. You want to be the high priest? You think to be a high priest that all it takes to be a servant of God? It's much deeper than that. Much deeper. There's a very cutting through saying by the Holy Kotzke. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach, "Ubikashtem gam kahuna." He says, "You are Levim, right? Ubikashtem, you are asking also for the priesthood." So the Kotzke Rebbe translated, "Ubikashtem gam kahuna." He says, all it takes to be a priest is just to ask for it. Sometimes we think, we asked God, we prayed for it. How come nothing happened? Well, then the answer is, you think all it takes for it is to pray? It's deeper than that. Sometimes we learn something and we don't understand it yet, we're very angry. So then all it takes to understand God's word, you take out the book, you read it like the New York Times, and you read it, that's all it takes to understand. You've got to break your bone over every word. Anyway, this Shabbos, we are mamish reading like questioning the crown of God, the two top holiest people in the world, Moshe and Aaron. The real chosen ones, right? And if you start questioning that, not only you die, God forbid, you take yourself out from the whole world, from heaven and earth together. Because Korach was not even going to hell, right? Korach is not even in hell, because it's not hell, right? It's just non-existent, right? Suddenly he didn't exist anymore. With all the holiness. What?
You're saying it's a raw kind of hope, so it's not high enough.
Not high enough, right? But the moment you think you can compare yourself to Aaron, you're out, right? Listen, imagine someone say, listen, I'm running for mayor in Kasrilivke, right? Therefore, I'd like to be also the mayor in New York City, right? Brother, you're good enough to be a mayor in Kasrilivke, with one big little mud and 3 huts, you can be the mayor in that city, right? Or imagine someone would say, because I'm teaching kindergarten, I also like to teach at the university. It just doesn't go, right?
I don't understand.
What?
On the one hand, you say You shouldn't be satisfied
Yeah,
with where you're standing.
so that's the
And on
two.
the other hand,
That's a contradiction, right?
you
That's a
don't-
very delicate thing, right?
So what's the key?
There's no
Keep
key
with
to
the
it,
attitude you
just
have?
your own, right? So that's what it is. It says, therefore, you needed the holiest people in the world, because otherwise it would be stupid, right? It's only the Levim who really want to serve God so much. But yet, it wasn't Aaron, right? Because Levim is very holy. Obviously, they were chosen, the Levim, because they were chosen from all of Israel, the Levim, because their mamish wanted to serve God with all the holiness, all the sweetness. But Aaron is even higher than that. He was chosen because he didn't want to serve God, just he. He wanted there should be somebody, there should be a high priest who brings peace between God and Israel, right? It doesn't matter to him who it is, you know. He is serving God so much, you know, that he just wants that God should be in this world, right? It doesn't matter if it's through me to somebody else, right? Listen, so I can serve God because mamish, I want mamish God to be manifest in the world, right? But I say let it be through me, right? Like this thief was praying to God, listen God, there'll be thefts this year, let it be through me, you know? You know? So the Levim said, listen God, you have to come down to this world. There has to be a tabernacle and you need someone to work for you. Let it be me. But Aaron would pray to God, God, you need someone to work for you. Please take the best man. But this is so delicate, you know. I want you to know one thing, that the holy Sea of Lublin, just good to remember, the Sea of Lublin was mamish a great-grandson of Korach, you know. And the highest Shabbos in Lublin would be Shabbos Korach. And the holy Lubliner would say, my holy grandfather Korach, you know. That's how he would begin. Because he was mamish, he was taka holy, right? Do you know when Korach is coming out from wherever he is, when Mashiach is coming? Do you know what will happen when Mashiach is coming? Something very special will happen. You see, listen to this. Korach was really supposed to be something special, because he knew he's something special, you know. Because as much as there are priests and there's a high priest, there was also supposed to be Levim and a high Levi. And Korach was really meant to be a high Levi. If he wouldn't have pushed himself, he would have become a high Levi. You see, the whole thing is, this portion of the week is so deep, you have to know your place, you know. On one hand, I have to push myself up and up and up and up, and I also have to know my place besides everything, you know. And I have to know that I have to wait for God to give me my place. Don't push God, you know. Can't push it, you know. Because if you push it, you lose your own place. You see, because Moshe could have said to Korach, okay, I won't make you a high priest, I'll make you a high Levi. But the moment he wanted to be already the high priest, he lost that also. Very delicate things. Anyway, God bless you. The thing is, the Sea of Lublin said, I mean, there was every year the same thing. He says that nobody in the whole world really can understand what was going on between Korach and Aaron. Obviously, it's so deep and so high because Korach was like a mamish, the holy of holies. He was like a mamish holy, you know. But the deepest depth of the thing is we always think you go to hell because you're not good enough. You're evil. You can go to hell also if you're not in your right place, if you don't know where you belong to. Lower than hell, right? It's very, 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 very deep things, you know. You have to realize one thing, that this God choosing goes on all the time, you know. Heartbreaking to know, you know. Every minute God needs a job to be done, right? God is choosing people all over the world, every second, right? So there are some people who say, listen God, you know, I'm top. And some people are just praying, please God, I hope you'll find the right person to do it. You know? They're the ones who are chosen. Oh, I'm telling you, gotta give a strong kracht, not even awake enough to kracht the way we should. Let's learn a few more. Anybody wants to say something strong at this point, or it's too heartbreaking to say anything? I think it's heartbreaking, you know? It really is, you know? Because on one hand, you really have to want so much, like Sandy, you gotta want more, and then you have to know, maybe I shouldn't want more, you know? I still leave it up to God, you know. Because there's such a thing as forcing God, you know, grabbing God and says, listen, God, I'm serving you, so. So listen to this. This is from Rabbi Levi. I want you to know Rabbi Levi. If you remember, I told you the story. Rabbi Levi was one of the Kotzke Chassidim, but he's the one who walked away with the Holy Ishbitze, and he was the top loot, you know, because it was mamish top. He says, because anything which you doubt, and then you see a miracle, and then you believe, that's a very low kind of believing. That's what he says. That's mamish cutting it right through. You know, we think, I can prove it to you, I have a miracle, and then you believe it. He says, this is all we Yiddelach are capable of, believing after miracles.
How about the Jews by Yitzias Mitzrayim? What did they believe before they saw you?
They was Mamina b'nei Mamina. We didn't believe in God because of the miracles. We knew because Abraham told us. They knew.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, it made us strong again. You see, maybe something you need a miracle because we were so sick, we were so downhearted. You needed a miracle to show you that God loves you or something like this, you know.
What about the prophets? How is somebody the true prophet?
So you got to have a good nose. You got to have a good nose. That's all there is to it. Yeah?
But he has to go through testing. He has
Do you
to
think
prove
that,
himself.
do you think Yeshaya and Yirmiyahu are showing around miracles?
Yeah.
No, and if they did, they did it as a sidekick, you know, as a hobby. But this wasn't their thing, you know. Yeshaya didn't stand on street corner and says, kids, I'm going to show you a little trick. Come here, Brother John. Bang, bang, bang. He disappears, right? You know, it's the greatest miracle where he can make people disappear, and then he say, bang, 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 back, and now I'll tell you prophecy. You know, when Yeshaya had something to say, he was saying it, that's it. You want to hear it? It's good. You don't want to hear it? You don't have to hear it. No?
What are you talking about?
What?
What you're talking about, you know, that the Jewish people in Mitzrayim believed, you know, because Abraham told them. So what about all these, the Mishigasim that happened, Riva, the Egel, all these times when they visit God, that negates belief.
No, so okay, that's a good question. I don't want to answer you now, okay? Ask me again, okay? Because I think after we'll finish the whole thing, it'll be maybe, you know, like Jena said, you know, the Sochotshow's father said to his son, you know, and there's such a thing which is called, serious, called kasha. You know, kasha means a question. So when he was 4 years old, his father says, you're such a genius, answer me this kasha. They had kasha, you know, the cereal. So he said to his father, wait. So he ate up the cereal and says, "Shtu kein kasha," you know, there's no more question, you know, no more kasha. Okay. Okay, it's a play on words. Because he says, if someone would prove to me with miracles that there was no God, if someone would come and prove to me with miracles, God forbid, that anything in the world, it wouldn't change me a bit. He says, if God forbid, he says, if the chosenness of Aaron depends on miracles, then it says meaningless. Because he says, they were not doubting that God told Moshe Rabbeinu that Aaron should be chosen, he says. But they said that Moshe Rabbeinu asked God that his brother should be chosen. And therefore Aaron was chosen. So they felt if Moshe Rabbeinu would have asked for somebody else, God would have told him also, we're angry at Moshe, why do you take care of your family only? You know, why don't you ask for somebody else? Now listen to this. He says, what this truth is, he says, first of all, you have to know by Korach that they disappeared from the world because they were so low that in this world God couldn't fix their souls, you know. They can only be fixed somewhere else, you know, in the cleaning store down there. There are certain things which can be fixed up here, and other things can only be fixed below. I don't know where it is, but not here. So he says something very, very deep.
So what do you mean by
What? What?
Excuse me, what do you mean by below? Gonna get fixed below?
You know, somewhere in the abyss, I don't know where. Not in this world, you know. You see, it's like this. In this world, you can fix. You see, anyway, you know, I told you before at the beginning of the week that the whole thing of Bamidbar is that here we are not talking about sinners, ordinary sinners. The whole book of Bamidbar is talking not about ordinary sinners, you know. They're talking about holy people who went wrong somewhere up there, you know, on the highest level, right? The sad thing is, when you get mixed up on a very holy and high level, that's the hardest to fix. Can't even fix it while you're alive. You just can't. God forbid. Because it's so far, you just can't. But I don't want to get involved in this now. Just because this will learn later. He says like this. He says one strong thing, and I want you to think of it. When Elianovi performed this great miracle, right? Remember with the two oxes and with the water? All of you remember on Mount Carmel? The two oxes. One ox was slaughtered for what was the name of the god there? Of Baal, yeah. And the fire didn't come down from heaven, and then Elianovi slaughtered this one ox, and fire came down from heaven. But he says like this: after they walked away, what did they say? Say, he really performed a miracle and he showed us there's one God? What was the reaction of the people?
Praise God.
Or did they say it was a miracle?
Didn't they also say that, or isn't it also said that there's going to be this enactment and the fire won't come down to take our
Oh, that's another
sacrifice?
thing that Holy Vision says. That's something else. Remind me later of it. Remember it from that? That's very strong, but let's not even say it now, because I don't want to mix the people up. In other words, it says something very strong. There's something, there's a miracle, and there's something which is much deeper than a miracle, Something happens that Mamish God opens your eyes, and you Mamish know this is so. Mount Sinai was not a miracle. It really was so, It's just not a miracle. The 10 plagues are miracles. Crossing the Red Sea is a miracle. Mount Sinai is not a miracle. It's much deeper than that. You heard God's voice. It's not a miracle. He says the holy thing is when Aaron HaKohen's little stick began growing, it was not a miracle. But the Mamish, God told Moshe, I'll show you who Aaron is. Aaron can take a dry stick and make it grow. That's all there is to it. It's not a miracle.
Shlomo?
Yeah?
Why aren't the plagues on the same level?
Because plagues were also very great revelations, but they're not like Mount Sinai, right?
Yeah.
Mount Sinai is not a revelation. Mount Sinai is real, Mamash, I heard God's voice, It's a miracle, It's not a Red Sea. The fact is that the Red Sea was there for 1 minute, and then it was gone, and Mount Sinai is still there, right? But now listen very carefully. He says like this. Because this is very, very deep. He says sometimes God performs miracles to help you, and sometimes God is not performing miracles, but God shows you something. It's not a miracle. But because God has compassion on you, because God sees you have so many doubts, you don't know what to do with yourself, so God shows you something, but not a miracle. Did I make myself clear? Sometimes Mamish could think, is there really one God in the world? And then something happens to you and your Mamish know it's not a miracle. Mamish, God will show you, I really am here. Right? It's much deeper than a miracle. A miracle is just to prove somebody's power. So he says like this. God promised Moshe Rabbeinu that when they should put in their sticks, and when Aaron HaKohen's stick will begin to grow, they will Mamish know that Aaron HaKohen is really it. That is a miracle. He says the same was Belial Novi, because he says like this: after someone performs a miracle, he needs a lot of help from heaven that people shouldn't think it's a miracle. Because that's the worst thing in the world, I think it's a miracle. Because he says a miracle, then you can walk away and say maybe it wasn't a miracle, A miracle, you can maybe after that find an anti-trick and say it wasn't a miracle. Now he says something very deep. The truth cannot be proven by a miracle, because the truth is so deep, much deeper than a miracle. Because I see so many people, they always think because I saw this holy man, he was performing a little trick, and I saw this holy man. This isn't what it says. Not only my believing God doesn't depend on miracles. If someone show me all the miracles and show me the other side, it still wouldn't tear me off 1 inch. Listen, I tell you, the Holy Baal Shem Tov performed a lot of miracles. And someone will come and says, I can show you bigger miracles. So therefore, will he be the Baal Shem? No, the Baal Shem has nothing to do with miracles. Baal Shem is the Baal Shem. Moshe Rabbeinu is Moshe Rabbeinu.
Did you say what the purpose of miracles are, though?
No, it's just like this, sometimes God performs a little miracle, and sometimes God has compassion on you and Mama shows you something. It's not the miracle. God shows you that it's true,
Miracles are needed, aren't they?
Something. Okay, in the 10 plagues were needed, but it was much deeper than that, I don't know about the 10 plagues, but he says like this. I'm just telling you what he says. He says, because the truth is a lot of miracles happens and you're not permitted to believe in that miracle. Miracle is not that. But there are sometimes something happens to you which is deeper than miracle, because this is a special thing from heaven, special revelation. It's not the miracle. But something happens that at that moment, this. It's very good to remember, because sometimes, we're always waiting for signs from heaven for certain things, which is very holy. But if you wait for God to let you know, that's good. If you wait for miracle, it's bad. Don't wait for miracle. Just pray that God should let you know.
Wasn't there already a big fur coat even in the middle of July?
Yeah, with little toner, yeah. Because he says, where does it say that in the summer it has to be hot, Maybe it'll be cold tomorrow, so I better take my fur coat along. Yeah, why did it come to your head right now?
Because he said if it's hot in July, that's a miracle.
No, because he says everything is a miracle, That means God wants it not to be hot. But he didn't mean miracle like we're talking about miracles. He meant everything is in God's hands, But God didn't say that it's always be like this, I think there's a different kind of miracle he was talking about, I mean, nature is also a miracle, So maybe tomorrow it has to be cold, but it has to be hot, Let's go, God, let's go. Wait, that's a little bit mehr Shiloach. What? What do you say? You're so tired, Nebuch? Madur is Nasar Kal Hashem. Why do you think you're better than us? How come you're the priest and you're the king? So the Ishbitzer says, when God chose you to be the Levium, why didn't you ask the question then? You should say, Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't want to be a Levi, because everybody is also holy. Then it was okay, right? It's very deep. What? Korach was saying to Aaron, why should you be the high priest? Why should you make yourself above everybody else? Everybody's holy. But the Leviim are also above Yisrael, right? Why didn't you say that when Moshe Rabbeinu chose you as a Levi to say, I don't want to be better than anybody else? But when you are better than somebody else, that's okay. When somebody else is better, then you walk up and say, listen, brother, who do you think you are? You think you're better than everybody else? Everybody's the same, This is so deep, The world is like this, I can be better. I mean, I'm really better than you, right? But you, who do you think you are, You think you're better than I? Yeah, that sounds good,
But it doesn't sound, that sounds good, but when the question that the Ishbitzer doesn't seem like the Ishbitzer is asking it from a holy man. In other words, what level are we asking now? Are we getting back to Korach the way we understand Korach, or the way you just gave us Korach?
On the highest level, it is sadly enough, because this is where the FD began falling, After he began falling, he was falling down all the way,
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you said what you had to say,
So on one hand, Hashem wants you to be low, low
Yeah.
type of person.
But when after God tells you to do something, you better do it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, brother. Oh, it's my holy sister. Tell her to call Mamish back. Tell her to call back in exactly. Yeah, and it's Jerusalem time. Yeah, brother. Tell her to call back in exactly 20 minutes. Yeah, she should please have compassion. Yeah. Well, I just translated it because I don't understand it yet, but maybe somebody will understand it. After that, at the end, the Torah says what a Levi has to do. It says, for Ovad HaLevi Hu. And everybody knows that Hu means, when you say Zeh, means it's here. Hu means it's not here, right? There, right? So for Ovad HaLevi Hu, the Levi has to work on a Hu, on that which, Hu, up there, which is hidden. So he says like this. What is the whole thing of a person he has to do? Sometimes how much I want to do something so badly, and I know I shouldn't. You know what happens to me? That at that point I reach that part of me, that because everybody has something wrong with him. Because if I wouldn't have something wrong with me, I wouldn't be here in this world to correct it. How do I correct that part of me which is wrong? I can't reach it. The only way of reaching it, when something comes to me and I want to do it, and I don't do it, then suddenly I'm so strong that at that moment I can even reach up there. So for over to Levi, a Levi is a servant of God. If you mamish work hard, then you can reach that part which is completely not there, because that means something is missing. It means you don't have it.
Shlomo,
Yeah?
if we're only here to correct something that's wrong, then why was Adam created? Because how could he do anything wrong if he wasn't created?
That's a very deep question. You're top. No, super top. The truth is, you see, something wrong doesn't mean wrong like a machine isn't going. If the car can go better and it's not going as good, it's also wrong, you know? Aaron was created to make himself even deeper and holier, to work on himself, you know? So this was before he was driven out from paradise, but maybe after paradise, you know, it's like a mamish a little bit wrong, you know?
Why was he created?
You see, but the way we're getting better is by working on that part of us which is a little bit wrong, you know? Obviously something was wrong with Adam, otherwise we would have eaten the wrong fruit, right? Because if it would have been completely, it would have never happened, right?
So God created him with something wrong.
Yeah. And he most probably he could have corrected it if he would have not eaten it, right? Like he says, if that moment he would have not eaten it, he would have also reached out to that part of him which is wrong and corrected this one not doing. But because he didn't do it this way, so that part of him which was wrong became stronger. But it was so strong that he couldn't be in paradise anymore. But your mom is in top form, Chatzkel, today. He says everybody has something very precious, but that preciousness is always hidden in something which looks wrong. It's very strange, you know. Imagine if my holiness is the holiness of giving, then what's wrong with me is that I don't want to give, you know. Because that holiness which God gave me of giving is hidden on the other side. Got to get to it. That means whatever happens to me and I want to do something wrong, then maybe if I don't do it, I will find that part of me, that holy little spot. And he says, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu, because his holiness was humility, but it appeared always that he is so arrogant. Because the holiness, his holiness of humility was hidden behind the arrogance. So Korach was very holy, was a prophet, but he did not see the humility of Moshe, you know, because it was so hidden. So completely hidden. You know. That means that holiness which God gives us is so completely hidden, and it's always hidden in such a way that it just looks opposite, right? Let's say sometimes you meet an atheist, right? And Mamashi says, I'm an atheist, right? But maybe she is Mamash the greatest believer in God, right? But it's Mamash hidden under that, right? It's a strange way. Never know. I don't know, but sometimes.
The Ishbitzer who also says that Moshe Rabbeinu's humility was so great that he couldn't even conceive that his brother and sister were talking about him.
No, that's something else. That's from Sochotshov, you know, another title. Yeah. But maybe it's the same, you know.